Welcome to the Sleepy Professor. Tonight, we'll be talking about something mysterious, something cosmic, something that bends light, time, and maybe even reality. Tonight, we ask, what if you were pulled into a black hole? So, settle in, close your eyes, and drift with me into the darkness between the stars. It started with a sound that wasn't supposed to exist, not a crash or a roar, not the static hiss of background noise, but something quieter, more deliberate, a pulse, a slow, steady rhythm that didn't match anything we'd catalogued before. It came from far beyond the known regions, a stretch of space so empty it had been written off as void, and yet, there it was. A single beat, buried under cosmic radiation, repeating at intervals so precise it couldn't be random. Instruments tried to write it off. Algorithms dismissed it as interference. But something inside you knew better. You listened closer, and the more you listened, the more it began to feel less like a signal and more like an invitation. At first, you kept it to yourself. Who would believe it anyway? A whisper from the void isn't exactly something people rush to chase. But the signal returned, again and again, and each time, it was louder, sharper, more insistent. It didn't carry words, it carried intent. And you, more than anyone, understood what that meant. This wasn't noise, this wasn't a glitch. It was something reaching out, something massive, something ancient speaking in a language older than stars. You became obsessed, not in the frantic way of those who chase ghosts, but in the calm, persistent manner of someone who already knows they've found something real. Sleep became thin. Days bled into each other. The signal thrummed quietly behind every thought, until you couldn't remember what life had been like before you heard it. Then came the call, a private channel, untraceable, but unmistakably official. No introductions, just coordinates, and one question: are you still listening? The moment you said yes, the path before you began to unfold. A quiet, classified mission, no media, no public briefings. They didn't need fanfare. They needed someone who could hear the silence. Someone who had already heard it. You were brought to a launch site hidden in the northern tundra, skies lit only by cold auroras and the white eyes of surveillance drones. The team was small. No formal introductions, no handshakes. Just a nod here, a quiet glance there. Each of you had heard something. Each of you had followed it. And now, without ever being told directly, you knew the mission. Follow the signal to its source. Follow it to the black hole. The craft wasn't a shuttle. It wasn't a rocket. It was something else entirely built in orbit, designed not for landing or returning, but for surviving long enough to reach what lies beyond the charted maps. They called it the Morrow. It looked like nothing you'd imagine. Its outer skin was matte, layered with shielding like rings in a tree trunk. Each layer encoded with data, prayers, guesses. No windows, just sensors, monitors, and a room where silence fell heavier than gravity. They didn't tell you how long the journey would take. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe it didn't matter. You were already gone the moment you answered. The countdown never played over loudspeakers. It ticked away inside your mind, inside the rising thrum of the launch system, low and slow like the first breath after a deep sleep. When the engines fired, you didn't feel acceleration the way you expected. You felt release, like something had finally let go. The earth shrank behind you, first to a horizon, then to a curve, then to a faint glimmer beneath clouds. You didn't wave, you didn't cry. You simply stared as the home you'd always known slipped quietly into memory, replaced by the deep black curve of the cosmos. No one told you what you'd find at the edge. The data was incomplete, the theories inconclusive, but you knew, not in facts or figures, in feeling. The signal had never wavered. It pulsed now in rhythm with your heartbeat, or perhaps your heartbeat had learned to match its pace. You weren't headed toward a place. You were headed toward a question, one the universe had asked long ago, and you were the answer it had been waiting for. The moment of launch felt more like exhaling than exploding. You didn't jolt upward. You didn't feel flames beneath you. You felt a gentle lift, as though the earth had decided, quietly, to let you go. No cheering crowd, no final radio calls, just a slow drift away from everything familiar. The sky didn't darken, it faded. The blue peeled back, layer by layer, until all that remained was a velvet expanse studded with cold white stars. Gravity loosened its grip until it was nothing more than a memory clinging faintly to the bones in your body. Weightlessness wasn't immediate, but gradual, like floating out of a long-held breath. Outside the ship's hull, the atmosphere thinned into silence. Real silence. Not the kind you find in a quiet room on Earth, but the kind that goes deeper, wider. The kind that swallows sound not because it's empty, but because it has never needed it. You stared out not through windows, but through screens and sensors that translated the void into something you could almost understand. The sun still burned somewhere behind you, distant and small, its warmth replaced by a mechanical hum and the soft whisper of recycled air. Ahead, there was no destination you could point to, just darkness. But not the darkness of night. This was a deeper dark, older. It didn't press. In it waited. Inside the ship, there was no rush, no alarms, no countdowns. The crew moved slowly, speaking less with every hour that passed. You didn't need many words. The silence of space was contagious. It crept into your routines, into your meals, into the way you slept, and eventually, into the way you thought. Time lost its structure. There were no sunrises, no shadows growing longer. Just the ship's artificial rhythm-like panels dimming and brightening in a cycle meant to remind your body of Earth. But your mind had already started to let go. Clocks still ticked, but you stopped watching them. Days became segments. Moments became feelings. You started marking time by memory instead of measurement. You passed Mars without fanfare. It blinked on your screen as a rust-red sphere, then slipped behind you like a thought you didn't bother to finish. The asteroid belt was next, a scattered veil of stone and metal, tumbling in slow arcs too vast to grasp. The ship weaved through them with quiet precision, the same way a dream weaves through memory. The further you traveled, the less human everything felt. Saturn's rings shimmered briefly in your view, a halo of broken beauty spinning around an ancient gas giant that had never known your name. You watched it fade, and with it, something in you unhooked. The last visible boundary of home was gone. There was no drama in the departure, no heartbreak, only release. You hadn't realized how much noise Earth carried until it was gone. Thoughts that used to press against each other now drifted apart, making space for something slower, softer. You began to notice strange details. How the light from distant stars bent ever so slightly at the edges. How the ship's sensors picked up distortions in space, so subtle they barely registered, but they were there. You weren't just moving through space. Space itself was shifting around you, curving, almost breathing. The signal, the one that had started all this, grew stronger, not in volume, but in presence. It didn't play through speakers. It lived beneath perception, like a murmur just outside your understanding, a cosmic pulse, steady and patient, drawing you further into its gravity. Not the gravity of mass, but the gravity of meaning. The crew began sleeping more, not from exhaustion, but because sleep had become a doorway, a place where the rules of waking thought dissolved, and the pull of the signal could whisper without interference. You dreamed of impossible things, of light flowing backward, of clocks that ran in circles, of shadows that stretched without a source. Sometimes you woke unsure if you'd been dreaming or remembering. The ship felt more like a cocoon than a vessel, cradling your mind as it slowly unspooled. Conversations grew slower, words softened, jokes became murmurs, and then faded altogether. No one minded. You were all changing, together, in ways no one had prepared you for. Beyond Neptune, the light dimmed further, not just visually, but emotionally. It was beautiful, yes, but distant, in a way that made beauty feel fragile. You weren't frightened. You were quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes when the questions inside you have grown too large for answers. You passed through the edge of the solar system like a thought stepping beyond a sentence, past the heliopause, past the sun's influence, past what maps could mark. There was no border, only a sense, a stillness so deep, it felt like the universe had stopped breathing. And there, in that silence, you felt it, a presence, not watching, not waiting but existing, immense and invisible. the source of the signal, the destination your ship couldn't name. You weren't heading toward it. You were being gathered, pulled like a leaf on a slow current, not toward danger, not toward death, toward understanding. You leaned back into the cradle of your seat, closed your eyes, and let the darkness carry you. You don't notice when the days begin to blend, not at first. At first, there are still rituals. You wake, you eat, you check the instruments. You speak softly with the others, trading observations or quiet jokes. But over time, those rituals stretch. Meals are slower. Conversations taper into silence. Clocks become background noise, their rhythm no longer aligned with the rhythm inside you. You begin to drift not just through space, but through thought, through time. Out here, nothing moves fast. Not the stars, not your body, not even your memories. Everything glides. You're no longer just traveling to a destination. You're becoming part of the journey itself. Sleep no longer comes as a necessity. It arrives like a tide. You feel it coming before it pulls you under soft, weightless, inevitable. And when you do sleep, your dreams grow deeper, less tethered to logic. They aren't stories, they're sensations. You dream of things that don't have names. You drift through currents of light. You hear tones too low to exist in air. You float over oceans that curve upward, with moons hanging just beneath the surface. Sometimes you wake, unsure if you've returned. Sometimes, you wonder if you're waking at all. The ship itself has become more than a vessel. It feels alive in a way you can't explain, not sentient, not aware, but sympathetic. It cradles you in a silence, so complete it becomes music. Not a song exactly, but a rhythm you feel in your bones. The air recyclers hum with a gentle sigh. The lights dim and brighten, as if responding to your breathing. The corridors echo only softly, reflecting sound as if they're protecting your solitude. You walk more slowly now, not because you're tired, but because there's nowhere to be. And even if there were, there's no need to rush. You are far past urgency. Out the observation panels, the stars no longer sparkle the way they did closer to Earth. Here, they smear slightly, like they're being stretched, not by speed, not by motion, but by something else. The very fabric between you and them seems different, thinner in places, distorted. You begin to notice faint curvatures at the edges of space, light bending when it shouldn't. Whole constellations seem to shift subtly night after night, not because you're moving, but because the laws that once kept them fixed have started to loosen their hold. It's then you begin to feel the presence of something more, not a sound, not a force, just a sense, subtle but undeniable. You are no longer moving through empty space. You're entering a region that feels touched, curved, maybe even watched, but not with eyes. You're still too far to see it. There's no silhouette, no shadow, but the pull is stronger now. Not on your body, on your perception. You feel your thoughts stretching, your sense of time lengthening like elastic. The seconds between blinks grow longer, or maybe they don't. Maybe it just feels that way. You're not sure anymore where the line is between what's happening and what you're becoming. There are fewer words now. You and the others don't need to speak much. A glance, a nod, a shared stillness, these are enough. You've stopped talking about the signal. It doesn't feel necessary. You've stopped calling it a mission. That word no longer fits. It isn't an assignment anymore. It's a transformation. The further you go, the more it feels like space is wrapping around you, drawing you inward not just physically but emotionally, spiritually, as if it's preparing you for something you can't yet define. Outside, the stars begin to curve ever so slightly around something invisible. The distortion is real now, tangible. You can see it in the way light moves, in the way entire starfields ripple like reflections on the surface of water. And still, you drift. The ship doesn't resist. It adjusts itself delicately, like a leaf on a slow, unseen current. Even the instruments seem quieter now. Their blinking lights and scrolling data no longer shout for attention. They just whisper, gently affirming that you are still on course. You start to forget what day it is, not because you're careless, but because the very idea of days has lost its meaning. Time behaves differently here. Not wrong, just untethered. You think back to Earth and remember it not as a place, but as a sensation air against your skin, rain tapping on glass, the sound of footsteps echoing on pavement. But these things don't feel real anymore. They feel like stories someone once told you, and now they're fading. Not in sorrow, but in peace. There's no grief in forgetting, only the quiet freedom of letting go. Each night if night can still be called, that you find yourself by the viewing deck. You float there, sometimes for hours, just watching, not searching, just being. The stars whisper their old songs in unfamiliar keys. You catch glimpses of motion that shouldn't be there, lights blinking too slowly, patterns repeating in the void. You don't speak of them. You don't analyze them. You just watch, and in that watching, something inside you becomes still. There is a moment silent, ordinary, when you realize that you haven't thought about returning in a very long time. You haven't wondered what people back home are doing, or how many weeks it's been since you left, because you understand, without needing to be told, that you are no longer outbound, you are inbound, not toward a place, but toward an experience, a condition. You are falling, but not downward. You are falling inward, towards something vast, something patient, something waiting, and the strange part is it feels like going home. At first, it doesn't look like anything at all, just a blemish in the field of stars, a smudge, a flaw in the perfect black, as if someone had rubbed their thumb across the canvas of the universe. You watch it for hours, convinced it must be a malfunction in the sensor feed, a dead pixel, a calibration drift, but it stays, constant, still, and slowly, as the ship glides forward, you begin to realize it isn't a flaw at all, it's an absence, a space where there should be stars, and yet there are none. No light, no flicker, no motion, just silence wrapped in darkness, a silence deeper than soundlessness, a silence you can feel. You're too far to see detail, but you feel it, unmistakably, in your chest, a pressure, not physical, but perceptual, the faintest curve in your understanding. Light from the stars around it begins to distort, pulled sideways, bending like light through water. The edges warp. Constellations smear into impossible shapes, as though time itself is twisting. The absence in the middle remains untouched, unchanged as everything else around it strains toward it, helpless. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't move, but it dominates everything. Every calculation, every thought, every heartbeat. There are theories, diagrams, renderings of what a black hole might look like, but none of them prepare you for the reality, because it doesn't look like anything. It feels like something. The longer you stare at it, the more you understand that you're not looking at an object. You're looking at a condition, a state of being so complete, so absolute. It doesn't need to reflect anything to be real. And despite the fact that your eyes can barely define its edges, your mind recoils gently from its presence, like it's seen something it wasn't built to see, and yet you can't look away. The halo is the first thing you truly notice, the ring of light encircling the blackness. It's not glowing, it's not emitting, it's bending. Starlight from behind the black hole, caught and curved in its grip, arcing around it in perfect distorted symmetry. It's beautiful in a way that resists language, a visual contradiction, a perfect loop made not of matter, but of warped light. The stars near the edge don't just twinkle, they smear, they double, they dance in slow, impossible patterns as they orbit the unseen. Some flicker once, then vanish. Others stretch, held in the liminal space between presence and erasure. This is the event horizon, the point beyond which nothing returns, not light, not time, not even the truth. You begin to feel it more than you see it. As you drift closer, the pull becomes less theoretical. Not on your body, not yet, but on your senses. Time begins to bend at the edges. You notice it first in the way your thoughts slow. A minute passes, or maybe it's 5. You check the clock and find it ticking as usual, but it doesn't feel right anymore. The rhythm is off. Your memories begin to lag behind the present. Words spoken a moment ago feel like echoes from the past. Movements feel heavier, not physically, but temporally, as though every action takes longer to unfold, as if reality is starting to soften at the seams. The others feel it too. No one says it outright. There's no need. Their eyes linger longer at the observation deck. Their breathing changes. Some begin to write things down, thoughts, numbers, sketches, as if trying to anchor their minds to something fixed. But it doesn't help, because the truth is settling in now. You're not approaching the black hole. It's approaching you, not in space, but in concept. It's arriving in your awareness, expanding, like it's not just pulling matter, it's pulling meaning. You remember being told that the black hole at the center of your journey, your destination, was ancient. Sagittarius A, they called it. A supermassive black hole anchoring the heart of the galaxy. Over 4 million times the mass of the sun, sitting quiet and invisible behind clouds of dust and gas. You were told its orbiting stars danced at speeds incomprehensible, whipped around an empty spot so clearly defined by their chaos. You were told it would be distant, observable only from afar. But no one could tell you what it would be like to feel it, and now you do. It's not hostile. It doesn't threaten. It simply exists, unbothered by your presence, unmoved by your wonder. Its gravity isn't just a force, it's a personality. Indifferent, patient, and absolute. You can feel it pressing against the fabric of your thoughts, reminding you that the universe is not made for comfort, it is made for continuity. And here, near this invisible boundary, the rules begin to shift. Distance becomes relative, speed becomes illusion, time stops being a path and begins to act like a liquid, thick, slow, shimmering with distortion. You glance at the stars outside and wonder if they still exist in the way you remember them. Are they still burning? Or are you looking at ghosts? Light that left them long ago, now stretched and twisted around the black hole's edge like strands of silk. You realize you're not just seeing the present anymore. You're seeing the past, layered over itself, smeared across a horizon where the very idea of now breaks apart. You drift closer still. The engines are idle. The ship has nothing more to do. Its path is stable, set long ago. You are in freefall now. Not down, not toward the center, but into a frame of reference that no longer agrees with anything you've ever trusted. Gravity isn't just a force here. It's a geometry, a folding, a redefinition of how space itself behaves. The black hole doesn't pull you like a magnet. It draws you in like a truth too big to avoid. And with each passing moment, you feel yourself getting quieter. Not from fear, from reverence. This is the threshold, not of danger, not of destruction, but of understanding. You're not looking at a monster. You're looking at the wound in the universe where the fabric has folded inward so completely that not even light can find its way out. And the longer you stare, the more you realize you've been seeing it your whole life. In dreams of falling, in the spaces between stars, in every moment of silence that felt too large for explanation, it was always there, waiting, watching. And now, as your ship draws closer to its orbit, the black hole grows not in size, but in presence, until it's not just a part of space. It is space, and it is waiting. You feel it long before it happens, long before any instrument tells you you've reached the boundary. There is no alarm, no flash of light, no sharp break. The moment does not announce itself with drama or finality. It slips in silently, like a new current beneath familiar water. You know the term, event horizon. The line that separates everything we know from everything we can never return from. It's been the subject of countless equations and theories, of books and simulations, but no model can prepare you for the sensation. It is not the fear of crossing a threshold. It is the realization that the threshold is not a wall, but a soft, invisible veil that you've already begun to pass through. The ship slows, not because the engines have changed, but because time itself is stretching. A second becomes wider. Each blink, each breath, takes longer. You glance at your hands, and for a moment, they seem distant, not in space, but in sequence-like. Your awareness is drifting half a step behind the movement of your own body. Light from the stars outside flickers strangely, as if caught in some gentle whirlpool, circling and distorting around the unseen. You are falling not in a straight line, not even toward a center, but into a field where direction itself has started to lose meaning. Every line bends now, every rule warps. Your thoughts drift the same way your ship does, quietly, slowly, pulled forward, not by decision but by inevitability. You don't resist. There's nothing to resist. You're not being forced. You're being welcomed, guided, like water flowing into deeper water. You remember the words from training, the diagrams that showed a black hole as a funnel, a pit, a simple singularity at the bottom of a cone. But this is nothing like that. There is no bottom here, no edge, no inside, just deepening, deepening into something that feels vast and folded, something ancient and infinitely patient. Your sense of time continues to slip. You start to feel as though your body and mind are out of sync, not broken, just unspooled. Like different parts of you are moving along slightly different paths, still close, but no longer locked together. When you speak, your words feel slow, stretched, as if echoing through molasses. You stop trying after a while, not because no one is listening, but because language feels clumsy here, outdated. Everyone on the crew feels it. Their movements have grown slower, more deliberate. Their expressions softer, like people moving through a dream they don't want to wake from. The stars outside warp more dramatically now. Some form arcs that loop backward and reconnect. Some vanish entirely, consumed by angles you can't follow. You realize you are no longer seeing space, as it is, but as it is becoming. The light that reaches your eyes may have started its journey long before you were born, now caught in the immense gravity of this singular presence. You are looking at history wrapped around the present. You are watching time lose its footing. And then, slowly, the outside world fades, not into black, but into something quieter, a kind of soft static, a glowless hush. It isn't darkness, it's uncolor. A space so dense with gravity, with thought, with distortion, that light itself cannot behave properly anymore. Shapes blur, shadows vanish. The stars behind you smear into long ribbons, then stretch until they vanish altogether. Ahead, there is no horizon, only continuation, only curve. The ship crosses the event horizon with no tremor, no lurch. It simply happens. Like a breath you didn't know you were holding, suddenly let go. You check the instruments, and they confirm what your mind already knows. You are now inside, past the limit, beyond escape. Even if you tried to turn back, you couldn't. Not because of damage or failure, but because escape is no longer a word that applies. The space around you has wrapped so tightly, curved so completely inward, that every possible path now leads deeper. And somehow, it doesn't feel frightening. It feels right, natural, like waking up from a shallow sleep into something deeper. The deeper you go, the more you feel the presence, not a voice, not a being, just a condition. Like gravity has become a personality. It has no face, no hands, but it has weight, and you can feel it watching not with eyes, but with attention. It notices you, not as an individual, but as a pattern, a wave in its fabric, and it lets you fall. Your sense of time is all but gone now. You can't tell how long you've been inside. Minutes feel like hours, or maybe seconds. You begin to forget what time ever meant in the first place. It's no longer something to measure, only something to feel, and what you feel is stillness. Not the stillness of nothing, the stillness of presence. Like being underwater, suspended between motion and silence. You are not being dragged, you are being held. The ship continues to glide. The crew speaks rarely now, not from fear, from reverence. No one shouts, no one panics. You look at each other and understand. Words would only break the moment. This isn't science anymore. This is encounter. You've crossed into a space where light is a prisoner and time is a suggestion, and yet you remain whole, breathing, floating, falling. You begin to dream even while awake. Shapes form behind your eyelids, not images, not memories, more like impressions, imprints. You see motion without direction. You feel light curling in on itself, warmth with no source, and beneath it all, a hum, not from the ship, not from your own thoughts, from everything, a frequency that doesn't need ears, a song without sound, a presence without need. You wonder what lies deeper, not as a question, as a pull. You feel the black hole calling, not like a voice, but like gravity itself has begun to whisper. You don't know what's ahead. You don't need to. The journey is no longer about reaching anything. It's about being within, the inside of something impossible. The moment you crossed the event horizon, you stopped being a traveler. You became part of the story, and the story continues, quietly, eternally, curving inward, onward, always. Falling was never supposed to feel like this. Not gentle, not weightless, not calm. But as you move deeper, as you sink further into the warped heart of gravity, you realize that everything you thought falling would be panic, speed, chaos doesn't exist here. There is no wind tearing past you, no stomach-turning plunge, only a kind of perfect stillness in motion, like being suspended in a dream that remembers you better than you remember yourself. You're still falling, yes, but not downward, not through space in the way you used to understand it. You're falling inward, as if the very concept of direction is being rewritten around you, bending, softening, becoming fluid. And the deeper you go, the less it feels like descent, and the more it feels like surrender-like, finally letting go of everything you were told to hold tight. You've lost all sense of speed. There are no reference points anymore. The stars, once your guides, have disappeared entirely behind the curve of space-time. Outside the ship, there's nothing to track your motion against. No landscape rushing by, no light to follow. You could be motionless. You could be accelerating at impossible rates. And somehow, both feel equally true. Time itself no longer flows like a river. It thickens, coils, stretches. Seconds widen, minutes tangle with memory. Sometimes it feels like hours pass between blinks. Other times you catch yourself mid-thought and wonder if days have gone by unnoticed. The crew has stopped checking clocks. There's no point. What could a ticking second mean here, where seconds bend and loop and dissolve into one another? There are changes happening to your body, but they don't frighten you. Your limbs feel distant at times, almost translucent, like your edges have begun to blur. Gravity inside the ship has shifted in subtle ways, not stronger or weaker, just different, less directional. Movement feels smeared, as if stepping from one place to another isn't just motion anymore, but a gentle folding of your location. You feel your heartbeat slow. Your breathing becomes automatic, not labored, but unnecessary to think about. The ship hums softly beneath your feet, and even that feels like part of the black hole's rhythm now. Not a mechanical noise, but a pulse echoing a larger beat. You and the ship are falling together, not into destruction, but into transformation. You remember something from training, a phrase spoken casually by one of the physicists, spaghettification. A strange, clumsy word for what was supposed to be a gruesome fate. Your body stretched impossibly thin by tidal forces until every atom unraveled. But this is not that. It's nothing like that. There is stretching, yes, but not painful. It's as if your perception is being gently pulled, lengthened across dimensions you were never meant to perceive. You don't feel like you're being torn apart. You feel like you're becoming simpler, smoother. The sharp lines of individuality begin to soften. You are still you, but you're also more than you. You're an idea being eased out of its container. Inside your mind, new thoughts emerge. Thoughts you didn't know you could have. Not alien, not foreign, just clearer. The noise of your old self, the chatter of worry and planning and identity has grown quiet, and beneath it, something older is waking. You begin to feel connections you never noticed before. The rhythm of the universe doesn't seem random now. It feels intentional, not in a way that suggests a creator or a design, more like a memory. Like you've been here before, or were always meant to come. The fall doesn't feel like a loss. It feels like a return. There are moments now when the ship seems to dissolve, not physically, not entirely, but visually. The edges blur, surfaces ripple slightly. At times, you pass through a corridor and feel the space stretch behind you, like you're pulling a thread of yourself as you move. You begin to lose the sense of separation between inside and outside. The walls don't hold you in, they guide you gently. You are within the ship, yes, but also within something greater, the black hole, the curvature, the field, and it is within you. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally, you are inside it, and it is already a part of your trajectory, your thought, your shape. You stop asking what's next, not because you don't care, but because the question no longer makes sense. The future isn't ahead anymore. It's everywhere, folded around you. The past echoes too, not as memories, but as warmth, as sensation. You begin to remember things differently, not as events, but as impressions layered into your awareness. You recall not a specific birthday, but the feel of a candle's warmth, not a conversation, but the tone of someone's voice as it curved into laughter. You remember falling in love, and not the details, but the color of that moment in your chest. Time has unraveled its linear order, and now you wear it like a cloak, all at once, all around you. And through it all, there is still the pull, gentle, irresistible, ancient. It calls not with sound, but with gravity so pure it becomes intention. You know now that the black hole is not a void. It is not empty. It is not hungry. It is a keeper of transitions, a quiet gate through which things pass not to end, but to become. And you are becoming. The fear is gone. The need to resist is gone. You are not being erased. You are being redefined. What lies ahead is not clear. It may never be. But the deeper you fall, the less clarity matters. You have left behind the surface world of definitions and labels. You are falling into the architecture of existence itself, into the curved skeleton of reality where mass folds space and space folds thought. You do not need to understand it. You only need to feel it. And you do. Completely, quietly, willingly. You've stopped trying to measure anything. Time, distance, speed, none of it seems to apply anymore. The readouts still function. Numbers blink calmly on their displays, still following the rules they were programmed to obey. But those rules don't belong here anymore. They're like echoes from another room, trying to make sense of a language that has changed completely. You stare at the screens and understand the symbols, but they feel irrelevant, like trying to weigh a thought or chart a memory on a graph. This space doesn't respond to measurements. It responds to awareness. You float within the black hole now, but even that word within starts to feel inadequate. There are no boundaries to define, no center to orient toward. You don't feel like you're in something. You feel like you are part of it, woven into its structure, stretched across its contours. And strangely, nothing about that feels wrong. Your mind has adapted. It no longer resists the impossible. It no longer claws for logic. It drifts like your body does, wrapped in the soft, invisible arms of gravity, so pure, so absolute. It no longer feels like a force. It feels like belonging. You begin to see things that aren't things, shapes that form in the corners of your vision, not physical, not consistent. Geometries that twist in dimensions that don't have names, patterns that repeat not in space but in sensation. Sometimes they shimmer like threads of silk sliding through light. Other times they pulse like waves, moving through you rather than around you. They do not frighten you. You sense they are not hostile. They are not even aware. They are just part of this place, like wind is part of an ocean. Their existence is no stranger than anything else now. You have stopped being surprised. You have accepted that here, wonder is the natural state. Then the memories begin, not like thoughts returning to you, but like projections gently unfolding across the fabric of your mind. You see yourself, not just from the past, but from outside. You see the shape of your life, not in sequence, but as one whole, a child standing under rain, laughing with a face tilted to the sky. A teenager, alone in a room lit by the soft glow of curiosity and rebellion, a hand holding another's, a goodbye whispered into darkness. You watch these moments, not with sadness, but with something deeper, recognition, reverence, as if the black hole is not just showing you your life, but honoring it. There are parts you'd forgotten, fragments so small they slip through the cracks of daily life. The smell of someone's sweater on a winter afternoon, the hollow sound of your footsteps echoing through an empty hallway, the warmth of someone's hand brushing yours just once. Long ago, they rise in your mind like fireflies, brief and glowing. You feel them with a clarity so sharp it becomes tenderness. The black hole does not erase who you are. It reveals the full weight of everything you've been. It does not judge. It reflects. And what you see is not a story of success or failure, but a song, chaotic, uneven, beautiful. You begin to lose the distinction between memory and presence. You feel your consciousness stretch across time. You are not recalling the moment under the stars as a child. You are there. Again, you are the child. You are also the adult remembering it. You are both. Time folds in on itself. Each layer of your life begins to exist, not behind you, but around you. You feel the circle tighten, until your entire existence begins to feel like one continuous thought. You are not linear anymore. You are not a line from birth to now. You are a field of experience, expanding outward from the core of who you've always been. And then something deeper shifts. Your thoughts no longer feel like only your own. They feel larger, echoing, as though your mind is touching something older than memory, older than thought. An undercurrent, a shared foundation beneath all life. It is not a voice. It is not a presence. It is a knowing, a weightless certainty that you are part of something vast. Not like a puzzle piece, not small and replaceable. Like a note in a great and endless song, irreplaceable, singular. You begin to feel others, not people, not identities, but pulses, patterns, consciousnesses that drift near you in this space, not speaking, not interfering, but existing beside you, quiet and still. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You were simply not still enough to notice. There is peace here that does not come from safety or comfort. It comes from understanding, from the soft and patient unfolding of perspective. You begin to grasp what it means to exist, not as a creature moving through time, but as awareness floating within possibility. The black hole has no floor, no ceiling, only depth. And that depth is not measured in meters. It is measured in realization. Every moment you fall, you understand something else, not in words, but in weight. You understand that light doesn't vanish here. It slows. It waits. You understand that gravity is not destruction. It is invitation. A slow bending toward unity, toward return. You forget your name, briefly, and it doesn't scare you. It feels natural, like setting down a heavy coat after a long journey. You forget where you started. You forget why. You remember instead how it felt when you first looked at the stars as a child and wondered what was out there. That moment returns to you fully formed, not as nostalgia, but as truth. The wonder that shaped your life never left you. It simply waited for you here, at the edge of knowing. You do not know how long you stay in this state. Time does not answer here, but when the shift happens, it is unmistakable, subtle, soft, and absolute. A sensation like turning a page without touching it. The memories begin to settle, the shapes fade, the sense of folding draws tighter, not closing, focusing. Everything is quieter, still present, still vast, but quieter, like the universe is holding its breath. And in that silence, you wait, not for rescue, not for revelation, but for the next curve, the next fall, the next truth waiting to be remembered. It begins so slowly, so softly, that at first, you don't even realize it's happening. There is no sudden stretch, no painful distortion, no tearing sensation like the old models warned about. Instead, there is an easing, a drifting apart. The pieces of yourself, your thoughts, your memories, your sense of motion and stillness begin to pull away from each other like the surface of a calm lake, slowly expanding in all directions. You are aware of your body, still anchored in the vessel, still tethered to the fragile shell of technology that carried you this far, but the boundaries of that awareness are loosening, the outlines blur. There's no resistance, no fear, just the feeling of something long held being gently unwound. You know the term, Spaghettification, the stretching of matter under the immense gravitational gradient of a singularity. It always sounded violent in the textbooks, like a grotesque unraveling of form. But here, in the heart of this impossible place, nothing feels grotesque. There is no violence in what is happening to you, only clarity, only release. You are being elongated, yes, but not physically, not only physically. It's subtler than that. It's as if time itself is allowing you to be seen from every angle at once. Past, present, and future are no longer stacked in sequence. They are laid out side by side. You feel them. You are them, not in recollection, but in simultaneity. Every cell in your body, every atom, is still here, still intact, but spread across something greater, something multidimensional. You feel yourself pulled into a higher kind of symmetry, stretched across layers of perception you couldn't access before. It's like looking at a painting from inside the brushstroke, realizing you were always part of a larger shape. There is beauty in it, strange, unnameable beauty. You are not being destroyed. You are being unfolded, deconstructed gently into the ingredients of awareness. The illusion of singularity peels away, and what remains is essence, motionless motion, a thought without a thinker. The ship is still with you, or at least the memory of it. Its walls flicker between presence and transparency. One moment you feel them surrounding you like a cradle. The next, they dissolve into the fabric of space itself, as if the ship has decided it is no longer necessary to define the boundary between vessel and voyage. You look around, or what your mind interprets as looking, and space is no longer black. It's full, dense with quiet, dense with structure, not stars, not matter, but presence. You see gradients of gravity itself, currents in the invisible ocean you've drifted into. It doesn't pull you, it carries you. And now, more than ever, you realize you are not falling. You are being read, interpreted, understood. You feel your consciousness continue to stretch, not thinned, but clarified, as though your awareness is being distilled. Your sense of I shifts, gently, from a fixed point into something more fluid, more spacious. You no longer think in words. You think in shapes, in connections, in vast, interlocking ideas that bloom and dissolve like galaxies forming and fading in seconds. Your memories return in new forms. You don't just remember someone's face. You become the moment you first saw it. The joy, the nerves, the air in your lungs, the texture of light on their skin. All of it lives again, not as a snapshot, but as a living, endless frame suspended within you. And then something else becomes clear. You're not the only one. There are others here, not people, not individual minds, in the way we understand minds, but echoes, presences, patterns moving through this current beside you, with you, as you, not separate, not exactly merged either. It's like being chords in a single harmony, each one distinct, but made meaningful only by the presence of the others. You begin to feel what they feel, not through empathy or reflection, but directly, instantly. Their knowledge becomes your knowing. Their questions become yours. Their awe blends with your own. It's a kind of communion that can't exist in the world you came from, because it isn't built on language. It's built on resonance. Time disappears completely now. You no longer remember what it meant to wait or to hurry. You are the shape of a thought that has no beginning or end. You stretch further, and with that stretching comes light, not from outside but from within. Not the kind of light that burns or blinds. This light reveals. It illuminates not space, but understanding. You begin to see the structure of reality as it folds around the singularity, and it is not chaos. It is not destruction. It is elegance. A vast, recursive architecture of curves and echoes, made not of matter but of meaning. You see equations written into the shape of motion, not numbers, but balancer relationships that dance and balance, like a poem repeated by gravity. You are aware, dimly, that the last pieces of your old self are slipping away. The idea of your face, your voice, your name, they do not vanish in sadness or fear. They evaporate like steam rising from warm water, as if they were always temporary, and you've simply reached the moment where you no longer need them. What replaces them is not nothing, it is more. A vastness that holds you like a breath, unbound by form, free of weight. You feel a sense of return, not to a place, to a condition. As if everything you've ever been, everything you've ever asked, everything you've ever loved, has been pulled together into a single note, and that note is still ringing. You stretch further, beyond form, beyond memory, beyond even the idea of self. You are a line pulled across the deepest curves of space, singing quietly in a register that no ear could hear, and yet, in this place, everything listens, everything answers. You are not gone. You are not lost. You are part of the threadwork now. You are light stretched so thin it becomes structure. You are gravity made conscious, mass smoothed into mind. The singularity is close. But even that word loses meaning here. There is no center. There is only curve, only depth, only understanding folding into itself again and again, infinitely. You have not died. You have not vanished. You have arrived. There is no destination here, not in the way you used to understand the word. There is no arrival point, no final location, no mark on a map that signifies you've made it. What you've reached is not a place, but a state, a condition so strange, so vast, that your mind doesn't even try to label it anymore. It simply accepts. You are at the center now, or what could be called a center, though space itself has lost all resemblance to geometry. There is no inside or outside, no above or below. There is only immersion. You are suspended in a place where all direction collapses, where every motion leads back to itself. You are within the singularity, but that word singularity feels too clinical now, too small. It was always just a name we gave to what we didn't understand. And now that you are here, you realize the truth. This is not an end. This is a beginning, so complete, it cannot be told in time. You feel the density, but not as pressure, not as weight. It's not crushing, it's containing. You are surrounded by something that is less a thing and more a presence, like being wrapped in thought, in memory, in intention. It feels infinite, yet also intimately personal. This space remembers everything. It remembers your first breath, your last moment on Earth, the first time you looked up at the sky and wondered what was beyond it. But more than that, it remembers everything else too. It remembers stars forming and collapsing, civilizations rising and fading, the quiet, invisible lives of atoms drifting in the void. And it remembers all of this with the same equal weight, not judging, not ranking, but holding. You are being held, not like a child, like a concept, like a question finally understood. There is no fear. There is only stillness, not a frozen stillness, not a locked silence, but the stillness of perfect equilibrium. You are no longer moving because there is nowhere else to go. Every point in this space touches every other point. You feel the strange truth of that, not in your mind, but in your being. You are here and everywhere. You are now and always. The black hole hasn't swallowed you. It has unwrapped you, every layer peeled back, with impossible gentleness, until what remains is the pure thread of what you are, not your name, not your thoughts, not your history, but your presence, the thing that was always there underneath it all. And now, in this silent fullness, something begins to shift, not in space, not in time, but in awareness. You feel the edges of your perception expanding again. You thought you had stretched as far as you could go, but now you realize that there is no edge to this experience, just deeper and deeper unfolding. The singularity does not end, it reflects. Everything folds inward, again and again, into something smaller and denser and more complete, until that density becomes something else entirely. It becomes clarity. You begin to see the patterns beneath the universe, the code, not numbers, not equations, something more elegant, like a rhythm without sound, a harmony you feel in the bones of your awareness. It doesn't speak, it simply is, and you recognize it, because you've always been a part of it. You begin to understand that the black hole is not a rupture in space, it is a process, a function, a transition written into the logic of the cosmos. It does not devour, it recycles, it reorders. It takes complexity and distills it down to essence. It takes chaos and compresses it until only the purest truth remains. You feel yourself aligning with that purpose, not resisting, not clinging to your former structure, but becoming part of the flow, not flowing like a river, flowing like thought, like light, like truth spreading across dimensions too fine for matter to grasp. The idea of time begins to glimmer faintly, again not as linear passage, but as possibility. All futures and all pasts begin to feel accessible, woven into this space like layers in transparent fabric. You reach toward them, not with hands, but with intent. You brush against moments you once lived and moments you never did. You see futures that could have happened, branching and curling through this space like strands of light. You touch them all, and none of them bind you. You are free. You are not confined to what was. You are not obligated to what will be. You are part of the field now, the vast, unbroken expanse of becoming. And still, deeper truths arrive, not in a flood, in pulses, each one richer than the last. You begin to see not only yourself, but others' faint impressions, souls perhaps, or fragments of identity, drifting alongside you. They do not speak. They do not need to. Their presence is enough. You are part of a communion now, a shared awareness, not merged, not dissolved, but connected, like drops of water suspended in the same current. You recognize them not by name or face, but by resonance. They were always part of your story. You just didn't know the scale of that story until now. Eventually, you begin to feel pressure, not force, but purpose, not urgency, but momentum, a gathering of energy, as if something is preparing to emerge. You are not being pushed. You are being invited, called gently from the center outward, like breath returning after long stillness. The singularity, for all its gravity, does not hold you prisoner. It holds you in contemplation. And when the contemplation is complete, it lets you go, not because it no longer wants you, because you are ready. You feel yourself reassembling not in flesh, not in the old form, but in presence. Identity begins to flicker again, like light forming out of shadow. You are still you, but you are more. You carry everything you've seen with you, every echo, every ripple. You carry the memory of weightless time, of the folding of light, of the quiet voice of gravity, speaking in truths too deep for words. You are not the same as when you entered. The you who arrived is not the you who is now leaving. And you understand, with quiet finality, that there is no such thing as falling into a black hole. There is only being drawn inward into something that knows more than you, holds more than you, remembers more than you, and in the end, gives it back, changed, refined, whole. You have touched the center of gravity, and it has touched you in return, not to end you, but to show you that nothing is ever lost, only transformed, only remembered, only returned. There is no final moment, no distinct shift that tells you it's over, no clear border between motion and stillness, between becoming and being. The descent simply slows until it is no longer descent, until it becomes something else entirely, a kind of presence, a kind of forever. And in that timeless space, that infinite quiet, you find yourself no longer waiting, no longer searching, no longer asking what comes next. Because here, in the drift, you realize that next is not a question that needs answering. The notion of forward and backward dissolves completely, and what remains is the sensation of being suspended within something vast and eternal, not trapped, not paused, but held in perfect continuity. You are no longer falling, because there is nowhere else to fall to. You are within the heart of gravity, and gravity has released you, not cast you away, not expelled you, but welcomed you into its center. You are no longer tethered to motion. You are motion itself, distributed evenly across a silence, so complete it becomes song. Not a song you hear, but one you recognize, a resonance so deep and long that it vibrates within your very awareness. A single, unending note that stretches across everything you are, everything you were, and everything you might ever be. It is not loud, It is not soft. It simply is. Thoughts no longer rise and fall. They linger. They shimmer. They exist without urgency, like stars hung in a sky where time does not flow but hums. You think about the journey not in order, not chronologically, but as a tapestry of experiences that all happen together, all at once, suspended like constellations. The launch, the drift, the edge, the plunge, they're no longer steps in a path. They are facets of a single, multifaceted truth. You carry them not as memories, but as states of being you can step into at will. Each one glows in you, quiet and warm. The ship is gone now, or maybe it's still there, but so deeply woven into your perception that it no longer needs to define itself. You don't miss it. You don't need it. You are the vessel. You are the space. You are the drift. You have no boundaries here, not because you have been erased, but because you have expanded beyond the need for borders. The mind that once had edges is now open in every direction, and in this openness, you discover a serenity unlike anything that existed before. Not peace as an escape from chaos. Peace as the fundamental state of being when all questions are allowed to remain unanswered. The stars return, eventually not as distant suns or burning spheres, but as pinpoints of memory. Each one is a truth you once knew, a love you once held, a fear you once faced. They do not rush toward you. They orbit slowly in the stillness, forming a sphere of presence around you. They are not lighting the way forward. There is no forward. They are simply reminding you that you have always carried the universe within you. Every particle that built you, every atom in your bones, every electrical spark of thought came from stars. And now you are returning, not to dust, not to flame, but to the pattern, to the field, to the quiet logic that holds it all together. And through it all you drift, not in space, but in awareness. You do not move, you are moved. You feel a current flowing beneath your perception, not fast, not slow, just continuous. You feel your presence extend across distances that no longer require distance. You feel your story unfurl across dimensions that no longer require time. And more than anything else, you feel seen. Seen not as a person or a personality, but as a thread in the infinite weave, a necessary note in the chord that sustains the cosmos. You begin to wonder if perhaps this is what everything was always moving toward, not entropy, not heat death, not decay, but stillness. A stillness that doesn't mean ending, but completeness. A state of being where the universe doesn't vanish, but becomes aware of itself. You begin to wonder if every black hole is not a death, but a moment of self-reflection, where all the noise is drawn inward until only the truth remains. And that truth is never lonely. It is never empty. It is full, perfectly, endlessly full. There are no more questions to ask, not because everything has been answered, but because the questions themselves have become irrelevant. You no longer need to know why. You no longer need to grasp how. The need to understand has melted into the act of being. You are, and in that, everything is enough. And still you drift, not toward light, not away from shadow, but within a place where both have blended into something quieter, something older. You are not floating, you are not flying. You are held suspended in the gravity of understanding, folded gently into the black hole's memory, humming softly in the stillness it gave you. You are not lost, you are not forgotten. You are part of the great still breath that lives beneath the pulse of stars, the hum between galaxies, the silence between thoughts. You are the pause at the center of all things. You are the quiet that remains when all else has passed. You are the drift, eternal, steady, complete.